Hello and welcome to Jasper's Lab or Jasper's Laboratory or whatever. Make any combination you want. It doesn't matter to me, it's all me and it's all my laboratory. Anyway, hello, good evening. This will be, I think, a very special night. Am I looking in the camera now? It's so strange. I think I'm looking to the left, but I'm looking to the front, I'm looking to the camera, and still I see myself looking to another position. Anyway, doesn't matter. Can you hear the sound in the background though? No, you can't because I haven't pushed play yet. So I will be doing that now, like this. So, hello everybody. Welcome to Jasper's Lab. I already said it, but it doesn't matter. We'll be talking about player versus player this evening, and I chose this subject because I wanted to talk about this. And now I realize that the font is so big for the player versus player thing that it escapes the box that it's supposed to be in. So let's make a slight adjustment there. Hopefully this will work, and it will probably work in the next one. Okay. Party first party. It's not player first player, it's party first party. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm still a bit. How should I say this? I'm a bit confused by what happened last night. We had our 1 year anniversary yesterday in the Precipice of Dreams. We were going to have a blast, and I think we still did. But we had one of us didn't make it to the end of the evening, so to say, and that was pretty sad. And I don't know how I feel about that. We discussed the events of the episode after the show ended, and we discussed it in with our group how we will go on after a character death, so to say. And there was a lot of discussion about it, but the one thing that happened is that our dungeon master said, Jasper, are you okay? And I said, yes, I'm okay, I'm just very sad. And then he said something in the trend of, I didn't know for sure because it seems like you weren't having fun anymore. And I said, well, we were going to play on this channel as we would around the table. And I think that when one of your fellows dies, others should be able to see how you react to that. And this was my reaction. It was sincere, although I had some face paint on me. And I was dumbstruck, so to say. We'll see how we continue after this. My character isn't dead, for which I'm very glad, but stuff still happened, so to say. So there's that on the one hand. The other hand is that I finally got kind of a recognition for the job I'm doing, which is great, because that means that I can keep my job, and that is why I took some wine, and I'm very happy in a sense. Hey Rocher, welcome to the chat. I hope my English will be up to par, so to say. I'm feeling a bit giddy, but who knows, right? We'll be talking about Party First Party, which I've said a few times already. And I'll talk to you after I announce the socials and the shows and do the introduction about why I'm doing this stuff. So talking about socials, you can find everything under !mark socials, and you'll see. This is no endorsement. Okay, chat is going wild because I took some wine. Anyway, I like the wine. I have never tried drinking kids. Are they alcoholic? Well, in a certain regard, they are. They make you. Well, anyway, let's not go into that one. So you can find all our socials under !mark socials in chat, but that directs you to our link tree, which can also be found in the thing below our YouTube, I'm guessing. And hopefully you'll subscribe to our Twitch and our YouTube channel, discover our Discord, and see our Dungeon Master Corner up there. Find us on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, and have a lot of fun. Then next Monday there will be another Parallel Projections where Michel will be playing Portal again, the second session. He's hoping to finish it in a single, his second attempt, the second half, I think. And hopefully he does, so he can move on to another game. I love Portal. I'm currently playing through Portal 2 myself. Then the day after that it's Talking Void with my very special guest Eric, with whom I've got a lot to discuss, especially because of last night. And then we'll also be discussing what's your favorite plane of existence in the multiverse by Dungeons and Dragons rules, so to say. So will it be Pator, will it be the Abyss, will it be Limbo, will it be the Beastlands, will it be the plane of Ash, will it be the plane of Dust, will it be the plane, negative energy plane, will it be the plane of Shadow, who knows. Or the Shadow Fell, or whatever you want to call it. It changed through editions as well. I think I'll be talking about Planescape a lot, because as you might all know, because of our Parallel Projections playthrough of Torment, I'm a big Planescape fan. So we'll be discussing some lore, and I'm very interested in your answers. So after that we'll go into the next video, which is very short, and then I'll return to you. And we're back. Short and loud. Okay, I'll put it down for the next time. I can't do that right now though. The music is okay during my talky talk. I hope so. Do I want to say anything else about that, by the way? We are listening to Stone Golem while I talk, so that's cool. Let's talk about player versus player. So I've been thinking of how I wanted to do this compared to my previous episodes, in which I took the kind of basic party that is adventuring in this world, where they are walking from Pleasantville to the next village, encounter a couple of goblins and monster, and there's a lot of foreshadowing and stuff. And then they finally get back to Pleasantville, and there is this thing happening where there is this kobold attack. We could continue that, but I think for now we are going to talk about party versus party in a way where we take a general party and start thinking about why you would even oppose your party with another party, and what this entails, why you should, what you should take notice of, how you should gear your party, why you should gear your party that way, and everything. And then I think at the end we'll have a nice idea of why you should use parties carefully and how you should build them. Let's go to another screen. Let's go to this one. This is my drawing screen, but for now it's my display the night below screen, which gets a bit reflected, as you can see. This is the night below. It's the second edition module. It was the first module that I really DM'd. I added a lot to this module, but it introduced me to a lot of things. In a way, there are you could say there are two party versus party encounters in this this adventure, and then there is another encounter which is at the start of the adventure, which is against kind of a party, but it's kind of a waylaid by bandits kind of thing. And then there are also situations where you encounter groups of enemies that resemble parties in a way. But why I say that there are really two player versus player encounters in here is because there are two encounters that really go into details about what these parties are about, where you encounter them, and how they use their tactics. And the complexity of these characters is also a thing that I wanted to discuss. Ashley says it works well with foreshadowing. I love having a dungeon master party that thinks they too are the good guys. The existential crisis the party has 10 sessions later, and they have to think, wait, are we the bad guys? Yeah, well, that's always a cool thing, and that's where you could really use a party versus party. And I'll give you an example of kind of the same thing as well. And the complexity when it comes to moral choices as well. Anyway, so I think that a party versus party encounter, what makes it different from any other encounter is the complexity and the choices you have when you are considering any of the enemies that oppose the party. So when you have your player party and that party is being played by 4 characters. Hey Vix, welcome to the show. Thanks for yesterday, by the way. And we are talking about party versus party. By the way, if you have any questions, ask them and I'll answer them. I'll give that priority. I really want to make this kind of interactive. And so if you don't understand what I'm saying, just tell me or let me explain about what I'm saying even more. And yeah, that will be great. Anyway, when you have 4 players that are in a party, each of these players controls a single character. The party they meet, unless you do some excellent crossover kind of thing, is played by the Dungeon Master, and that's the big difference when you... Well, so there are 2 differences really. A party is a more complex encounter than any monster encounter, in theory. And then it isn't a player encounter as well, because they are ruled by the Dungeon Master and not by a number of players. So there's a difference in the attention you can give each of these characters. So I wrote something down, namely that in this episode I will be talking about these things. So we are going to talk about balancing the encounter, the Dungeon Master versus the players, the relevance of such an encounter, the gear you can give these give to the opposing party, and why you should even introduce another party. And of course, there's no real reason why you should not introduce another party, but I think you should use them sparingly. So when I think about my own campaigns, especially my current campaigns, and the one that I'm still running on a monthly basis, so to say, there are a lot of things happening involving non-playing characters. You have the non-playing characters that are friendly to the party. You have the non-playing characters who try to kill the party on their own or misdirect the party. You have non-playing characters who travel the world and they meet at certain points again and again. And all these characters, I always describe them in a couple of lines as to make them consistent. But I never think of them as characters that my party will destroy at a certain point. Although when they want to fight them, they of course can fight that character, that non-playing character. But most of the time this doesn't happen because they are there for story hooks or for intrigue or whatever. My party met a guard who was of nobility, who cleaned the streets of the fraud that was happening within the City Watch, and who got the party to be absolved of their apparent crimes that they committed earlier, which they didn't. And so he's now a non-playing character that makes a difference for them. And I know kind of what class he is. He's a rogue type, and he has kind of inquisitive background, mastermind maybe. And I know kind of his level. He's a bit stronger than a single member of the party, but he's not as strong as on his own as the whole party. And this guy came in after I did an encounter where there was one non-playing character that really wanted to kill the paladin of the party, and she tried really hard, but assassins suck in 5th edition, so she didn't succeed, which was a good thing, I guess. But she was, and after that she got joined by a couple of fighters, rogues, a sorcerer, and a cleric. But I didn't consider them to be player characters because they weren't part of a party, so to say. Ibibiskra, I don't know how to say her name. Totally depends on how you present the party, is it not? The hostility of the party is influenced a lot by the dungeon master. Yeah, of course. But what I'm trying to get at right now is that not every encounter which involves a number of characters that have statistics that resemble a party are actually a party. And even though your players might never really know what the other party is about because they might meet them at a certain point and they get into a fight and then possibly the enemy party dies and they never get to know them. There is a thing concerning other parties where there's a lot more happening than when you encounter a simple fighter, and sometimes this only has to do with giving them a name, because one fighter isn't that different from another fighter, especially not at the same level, although gear might change a bit. But I'll show you an example in a very short while. Let me see if I can do that. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Ashley says, also the party. I have had parties sent to hunt down the players because they are interrupted by the big bad evil guy's plans. That was hostile by the actions of the players, needing challenge for their actions. Big bad evil guy. So what you're saying, also the party. I have had parties sent to hunt down the players. Yeah. So that's what you can use them for, and that's I'm going to give you the example very soon. But let's do this. Okay. So what you're seeing here, hopefully, is James. Can you see James on the screen? I think you can, right? So James is an high elf rogue. He's an inquisitive character as well, and I could have put something like this above his name: Master of Coins Rogue level 5, which is a monster I created. The main difference is that James is a character and Master of Coins Rogue level 5 isn't a character. And this isn't really reflected in the statistics below, but it makes for a kind of difference. James is a non-playing character, which I use as a butler, of course, because why not call him James, right? I of course gave this option to the player character who had this butler, and he called him James. And his wife is called Miranda. So Miranda and James, the high elves, so to say. What makes a bit difference is that I introduced these two non-playing characters as being part of the household. They took care of the characters when they arrived. They had a personality from the very start, and then they almost got killed. Whereas this Master of Coins rogue has no personality at all. This guy is a thing that I use to frighten the party, because they come in with a lot of bodies. I had 5 of these, then I had 6 of these, the Master of Coins fighter. I had 1 Master of Coins sorcerer, and I had a Master of Coins cleric. They are nameless entities. And when I scroll through these statistics, you will see that they don't really have very special gear, so to say. So they have a melee weapon which gives them a +5 to hit, and their statistics, they have a DC 15 for the spell saves and a +7 to its attack, which is very normal for their level. They have an armor class of 18 dependent on their chainmail and their shield, and that's kind of all of it. Nothing more is happening there. Well, James, well, he doesn't have any special gear, but he has a name. What am I getting at? Well, once you start, so let's go back to the Night Below box, because I love that box. Let's go back to this box. It's all in the name. Yeah, it's all in the name. In this Night Below box, there are 2 parties, as I said. One is a party that the characters encounter while they are traveling through the Underdark, and this party consists of like 5 or 6 characters, which have a lot of gear. This is a 2nd edition module, by the way, which is kind of different from 5th. And there's a short description of their personality, there's a short description of what they are doing there, and they have a kind of motivation to do what they are going to do. The other party is a party that have established themselves as part of the community of this great Aboleth city, and they've got a name. They are the Raveners, and they are even more powerful. Their rooms are described in the adventure as being lavish and such, and they work for the big bad evil guy, the BBEG, so to say, and they have even more gear than the previous parties, and that's logical because there are like 5 levels in between. Ooh, sip of water. Still drinking through a straw, even though I don't have my face paint from last night on anymore. And even though you could look at them as a simple encounter, I don't think that my players really, they knew they were fighting something special at the time, right? Hibibiskra Dubraka. And Hibi is fine, okay. You remember those encounters, right? And they remember them for a couple of ways. There was suddenly this group of adventurers that really gave them a hard time. They had a lot of magical items on them, and they shouted things during the battle that were personal to them and were hateful towards the party. They had a motivation to capture part of their troop, namely the spellcasters, to give them to this great big bad evil guy. So there was something different happening, and the party knew that once they defeated them, there would be a lot of treasure. So that made it kind of special as well. So when I'm talking about these 5 points that I've introduced, let me see. These points, balancing the encounter, Dungeon Masters versus player, and relevance. This is where the relevance comes in. This party is relevant because they are part of a system, and because they are part of a system, something is happening when they get introduced, even if it's only for a couple of seconds. this is they never met this party before. They met them in an encounter that lasted a couple of minutes, and after that they were defeated and they never returned again. But because they were on a journey, the whole thing felt different. So the relevance is that the party now understood that it's not only that this big bad evil guy was controlling a lot of monsters that worked for him, but he was controlling actual other people which had stakes in the big bad evil guy his victory. And this meant that they had to switch the perspective on what they were doing there. Namely that, yes, they were from the surface world and they were diving into the Underdark, but there were other people diving into the Underdark as well, and they were kind of evil. Ashley says, "Oh, there's no table talk like Dungeon Master Party table talk. I sound like I have a split personality shouting at myself about spell slots and healing." Yeah, well, good. And Hibby says, "And fighting another party felt like fighting to a mirror. I felt extra motivated." Yeah, so you do feel extra motivated to win the fight. Now, you also have... so this is the relevance, but then there's the why as well. Why would you introduce this other party? And this is different than the relevance, because you can describe the relevance in a certain way. But I think that it's important to, as a dungeon master, to have the backstory of these characters prepared to a point where you understand what they are really doing in a certain situation, and letting this shine through your combat encounter. And we're talking about combat encounters, right? Because we're not talking about social encounters, but because that would be silly in this regard. So now I come to another example of a party versus party encounter, and that's when in one of my current campaigns, the party was leaving a monastery that was destroyed, and they came down a mountain, and they got ambushed by these 7 people in ropes, red ropes, which gave them a really hard time. They were shouting in tongues, so to say, and the party was actually quite successful, and they killed that party. They killed 6 out of 7 members, and they let the last one live to talk to him. And they discovered a couple of things, namely that they just killed a good aligned party because they were on a mission to intercept evil guys that were doing stuff at the monastery. They discovered that they themselves didn't understand the language during the fight because 3 of their own party members had been infested with a devilish soul, which warped their minds, by which this encounter happened the way that it did. And they discovered that this party was part of, I think I called it the Scarlet Order, because there's always kind of a Scarlet or Crimson thing in any campaign. Scarlet Order, which had a very specific mission given them by the clergy of the good god to do something about evil stuff that had happened at the monastery. So, and they simply thought that the party was from that monastery, and because they couldn't communicate, they attacked each other. And why did I introduce this? Well, for a couple of reasons. For this background information, obviously, but also to kind of humble the characters in a certain way, to make them realize that during any adventure, the people that you encounter have a life of their own, and when you kill them, you leave an empty space somewhere. You break down loving relationships. You let mothers not return to their children, so to say. You let temples wait forever because their also mighty paladins and clerics will never return. And this is a reflection of the party itself. I think somebody always, the mirror thing, right, Kiwi? Um, so a lot of things happened, and then the final guy that was still alive at the Bugsy Road, I think, he said, well, why did you do that? And why aren't you showing remorse at all? Because I think at that point, you know, the party is half good and half kind of neutral, with a tendency sometimes to evil. They were actually dumbfounded by what they had done. And so they didn't want to admit that they had done a thing that was in the end, well, maybe not really evil, but had consequences in the negative. And they tried to escape this conundrum by simply saying, we didn't know. Which is a sentence you never want to hear any good player character say, because it's not an excuse if you do not know. Because in the end you have to come to terms with what you have done, so to say. And I think that that this is an example of a party versus party encounter, where the relevance is just more than a couple of rogues and fighters that break into your home, which are supporting a single non-playing character that's of relevance. To go even further, you can imagine a party that's always ahead or one step ahead or one step back. I don't know how to say it all of a sudden. Compared to what the characters are doing, and let them inhabit the same world as the characters do, and have them evolve as your characters do. In my other campaign, I started with this backstory where the group met each other when one of them was kind of harassed by a stupid nobleman, so to say, and his friends in an alleyway. And the party came to her rescue and took her into the inn, and long-lasting... What's happening here? I think it's a fly or something. A long-lasting friendship ensued after that. And then, but this other party existed in the same city. And so, while they grew, that party grew as well. And they encountered each other at certain points, and there was always kind of an hostility between them, until at a certain point that party attacked the enemy party, or the opposed party, so to say, attacked the main party. It came to combat until one of them got killed, and then the others came out of a kind of haze and realized what they had done. Now, this other person wasn't part of the party all those years ago, so it's not an excuse of them always having been under a bad influence and harassing this party member at a certain point. But what it did do is that when they were under this influence of this guy who tried to murder the party, and when they escaped it, they suddenly realized other things about their history, you know. They might have been teenagers when they did the first thing, but then the second time around they were in their 20s or maybe even in their 30s, I don't remember exactly. And their lives have changed. Some of them might have gotten kids in the meantime, and even though there is always this kind of competition between the two parties, at that point they realized they had gone too far. This realization made them rethink their bond with the other party. And then you have another party simply living in your world, and that party is gearing up, and they are getting more influence, they are gaining levels, and they're always there in the background, and sometimes the party would collide with them, and well, the last time they really saw them, they were both fighting in the same war, so to say, in this city which was under siege by this big sonic boom kind of enemy. And they fought back to back, so to say. So their whole intention towards each other had shifted. They fought at a certain point, but instead of that being the definite battle between them where one of the parties would survive, it was the battle where they started appreciating each other. So you have what have I been saying right now? You have the party that suddenly appears and tries to kill you, and the relevance is there because they are part of the plot, so to say, and they are there to make the characters realize that they live in a dynamic world where it isn't humans versus the monsters, but it's also humans fighting for the monsters and everything, and that makes for a thing, and the realization that there are other groups out there that are possibly as difficult to defeat as one of their own. The second example is of a party that survived the encounter, was actually a good party, and the party itself is also good, somewhat good aligned. And they really have to think about what they have done and how they have impacted the world with their deeds. And the last party is a party that really levels as the party levels, and they keep encountering them, and the dynamic is there to support change in a certain way. So I think that's the relevance about other parties, and that's the thing you don't really see when you encounter a group of monsters with a single stronger monster, or a group of fighters or rogues with a single named character in them, and so on. Can you agree with what I'm saying? What about evil party versus evil parties? Well, things can be kind of in reverse there, you know. So thank you for the question, by the way, Hibby. I think that when you encounter an evil party and they are about to fight you for whatever reason, you kind of have the same experience as with a good party versus an evil party, or possibly a good party versus a good party who didn't know they were fighting each other for the wrong reasons. When you think about the storytelling aspects, where this party has its motivations explained, and the evil party thinks about, well, now we know what this house of Drow is doing, and we know how we can influence this world even more, and they failed, so good for us. Well, that's a thing that can happen in such an intermediate state. And then there's the other evil party that is part of your own society and has its own goals, and tries to achieve them before you, and you can either encounter them in a big battle versus the good guys, for example, where you have to work together, but in the end you might either backstab each other or go your separate parts if you're more of the lawful evil kind of party, and you go back to your, an example of Drows, to your own houses and redefine what you think of each other, and maybe you confront each other again, or you decide on a simple truce for the time being. That depends, but I think the short term, the eye-opening aspect, or the long term things aren't really that different. Of course, you could start thinking about what is evil anyway. And then it gets a lot more complicated. If I watch how Drow are being handled right now, for example in Critical Role, where they are simply this different kind of society which supports more monster-like races, but makes them live in unison compared to the human, elven, dwarven, halfling, gnomish, whatever kind of populace of a world. Then the Drow aren't evil anymore. They're simply another society which has its own views, which might be harsher at sometimes because they need to gain control of the situation, but in a way it's just another empire that's confronted by a kind of high fantasy kind of society. But when you think of, for example, Drist, and in his books, like this Drow who is from this really evil society, and this society is all about Wolf giving them commands to defeat the dwarves in the Mithril halls, and there's all this war and intrigue happening, and whole houses fall to the whims of this Spider Queen. Then the evil is kind of in their intent. we still don't know if they're inherently evil, but they do tend to a culture where masochism, torture, backstabbing, and all that kind of stuff is quite normal. And you could possibly, I can't give you an example because I would probably give you the wrong example, but you could possibly think of cultures or subgroups, for example, a cult in the forest or something. Here I said something where this typical intent of a group is to towards this greater goal, although they might of course be misdirected by a very strong entity that tells them that this is the truth because it's written, and they all believe that, and that's why they accidentally do the wrong thing. But if they're all aligned behind that view and are sound of mind, so to say, then they could be considered kind of an evil group. But I'm not getting into too much details here in this case, because we all know that in the real kind of cults are that's very intricate of how they're put together, and I can't come up with the name, but they have been so can you help me, chat? They have been so manipulated that they don't know what's real anymore, you know. So what's evil then? But I think that when you consider evil in an aspect where you're doing the wrong thing, even though it might be for kind of the right reasons, then you're doing an evil act. Then that's a kind of evil that you can kind of implement in any kind of society, in any game, you know. Because if you think of Thanos from the Marvel universe, he thinks that he's right in doing this big thing where he murders half of the multiverse, so to say, and that really helps the plot in the long run. But it's kind of evil to destroy that many people, right? Even though he thinks he's in the right. Good people do evil things too. Yeah, thanks, Hebe. Yeah, they do evil things, and I think it's not the one evil thing that makes a person evil. It's the kind of the balance. I think that oh no, I don't want to get political, but those people that you see on Twitter who say that one person is a bad person because he said that at a certain point of time and just once, compared to all the good things he did. If he didn't do any good things after that and only said bad things, then it's another case. But you know, this one, he said this one bad thing, and then you totally neglect all the good things that somebody has said, then you have to really start thinking about the balance thing, right? Because you can all make a misstep, and some of them are bigger than others, and some of them you really have to pay for. You can't commit murder, for example. But if you at a certain point said something wrong, and you are really I know that I could get slack for this, but if you really were in a different place at that point and didn't understand the consequences of what you were saying, then you should be forgiven if you understand what you did wrong at that point, and either apologize for it or should be forgiven by it because you've changed that much. Anyway, that's a slippery slope. I won't go down that road that much, but I've been on Twitter a lot lately, and I think it's a kind of poisonous environment. But that's real life stuff, like getting in the way. For everybody, I am a philosopher, so I have had some ethics classes and everything, and well, there's this thing where they say you can't be an altruistic person because even if you're doing something altruistic, there might be you always feel you might still feel good about doing the altruistic thing, and that's an egoistic point. I think that there's a big meta shift happening when you talk about altruism in that way, because I think you can be altruistic, and of course you can feel good about being altruistic, and so it gives you something back, but you can honestly give something to another person without having any other personal motivations. And if you accidentally feel good about doing that, then, well, you know, you're still an altruist, so to say. So this is the path, and I think that when I'm playing Bowen on the Precipice of Dreams, our adventure that's every other Monday, and I'm playing my cleric version, which I haven't played for so long, he is convinced that the path that he has done things that were wrong, but he's not too concerned about that, because he knows that his intentions are good, and that when he reaches the end of his path, that he will have done the things, well, in his mind, right? That will make him a good person, and he's always trying to be a good person. He makes missteps, especially in communication, but it's his intention to do the right thing. So we went a bit off topic, I think, but we haven't even discussed of how you are going to do a party versus party in combat, right? So was that a good answer to your question, Hebe? And are you still enjoying yourself, Ashley? And hopefully is the rest enjoying themselves as well? Have to have some drink as well. Again, I mean. Might be all over the place though. Still looks sillier now. Yes, off topic, but yes. Hebe, it feels extra competitive knowing that other party outlived an encounter with the party and still running the world and gaining levels and influence. Yes. And makes the world come alive, especially when they meet them at later points, right? Or heard of their deaths, for example. Funny thing is, my party went 13,000 years into the future, left that whole world behind, and at the point they discovered one of these people connected to a machine somewhere. They thought, what is happening here? And then they totally neglected that plot line. So they went a whole separate way, which is kind of funny. But it was all connected, of course. But I'm guessing they still kind of felt some hatred for that person, in a way. I don't know. So party versus party. I said a couple of other things about this, right? So let's go back to the screen. Balancing the encounter, Dungeon Master versus player, relevance, and the why. So I've talked mostly about relevance and the why right now. I should have put them the why first, because I'm a philosopher, so I should always set the why first. No, just kidding. So let's talk about balancing the encounter in Dungeon Masters versus players. So, when you think about an encounter with another party, there's immediately this thing where you always know kind of how to build your encounter. Especially in even numbers. Namely, if you have a party of 5th level and there are 7 players, when you make an opposed party of 7 players that are 5th level, you have a deadly encounter. There should be a 50% win chance, right? Because they are even. So the chance that this party gets their natural 20s in before this party will make the biggest difference in whether one or the other group will win. And the same goes in reverse. If you start fumbling, then and roll only once, then you have a kind of another problem. Well, I can spoil you this. This is not true. Party versus party, where the parties are of equal level, will always favor the player party. And I'm talking about equally geared as well. And this is because of the Dungeon Master versus player thing. The players have been playing their characters for 5 levels. They have been learning about their abilities from 1st level and on. They've added in segments upon this character they know what their friends will do in combat, and they can really control the situation much better than a dungeon master can. The dungeon master builds his party from scratch, or takes it from a book or whatever, has a general idea of what every member of the party does, has investigated the spells that the other party has geared the party towards the same kind of level as the other party, and but when they start fighting, he or she will forget stuff, always. And will he or the dungeon master will not do the optimal hits, will not do the optimal moves during the combat, will not take the optimal amount of things that happen because of terrain. The dungeon master will perform suboptimally in any encounter. Especially when you roll initiative per person, because that's just the way it is. You can't remember all the rules. For example, I've built my own Scion class, and recently I thought of building one, and then I tried to do it, and I couldn't remember the rules of my own class, and this is because time has gone by. I think it has been like 4 months since I put the finishing touches on that class, and now I have to really think about how to handle that character. And there's this really big maze of abilities that come together in that character as well. There are all these passives. There are these kind of utility powers that it has. For example, if you have a wisdom save, you can make it with advantage, or after you suffer little damage, you can keep standing with a with a barbarian, for example, and or even the thing where a party member drops to 0 hit points and you forget that it isn't dead yet, and so you don't cure it. All these kinds of things will happen as a dungeon master, and it's really normal that this happens because you're not a machine. The DM is always multitasking. Yes, indeed, Hebe. And through the different editions, this has been a problem. When you this is not true. I'm saying the wrong thing right now. This has been true through all editions. When you have 2 leveled parties, the players will win, unless they're out of their mind. They aren't. They're thinking of other stuff during the fight, or you surprise them in such a way that they can't act for a whole round, and you can get one of them down before they can even try to do stuff. But then the encounter isn't fun anymore because one is already out of the combat, and then, you know. So in an equal fight, the party will always win, and this is the whole thing. This rule especially goes for player versus player, but in a way it goes for any deadly encounter, because a deadly encounter often says that there's a 50% chance that either the party or the boss will win, or the deadly encounter will win. But imagine a dragon against a party of 6 players. You have just this one dragon to control, and either he destroys the party, or a couple of them, or the party destroys the single dragon, and that's the end of it. And when you have a dragon, you only have a couple of abilities to think of. Well, at least in 5th edition. But what was I trying to say? Okay, so that's where you compare the 50% chance to win in a deadly encounter. Because, you know, can you ever go above a 50% chance in favor of the enemy? You can build a party, an enemy party, that's 2 levels higher, or 3 levels higher, or 4 levels higher. and then you can totally destroy the party simply because they have access to abilities and more hit points and stuff than the player party has. So yeah, that's not fun at all. So the worst encounter you can plan is a 50-50% party. Vic says, that's the end of it? My party usually harvests things from dragons when they are done fighting them. Yeah, well, that's not the end of it, okay. You get a lot of treasure as well, probably. Yeah, true. But that's the same with a party versus party, right? Because you're expecting a lot of loot. So now is it? So what do you have to do? And I think what you have to do is build a party that is as strong as the player party, and make them victorious. It's as simple as that, because you don't want your party to die, right? You have to make it difficult for them. You might try to focus fire on the cleric, or you might try to focus fire on the mage, so that they can't get their fireballs off and you can get your fireballs off. So you make it an interesting and a difficult encounter, but in the end it should not be feeling like they have less than a 50% chance to win. And when you balance the fight, as I said previously, they probably have a 60% chance to win, and even in such a way that it's probably true, especially in 5th edition, that none of the party will die. Well, there we have a difficulty as well, because I think in earlier editions the chance that that a single member of your party would die was much bigger than in 5th edition. Although last night proved us somewhat wrong, because, you know, one of us kind of died. Yeah, the problem with 5th edition is that it isn't lethal enough, normally. Is this a problem? I think it is a problem, but it's not a problem that's... it's a small problem, so to say, because in the end you want your party to survive, so then it's okay. But it's sometimes... So, for example, I give you the example of the assassin. So I had this, I had this assassin sneak into the room of a paladin. And the paladin was lying on his bed. He had no armor on, and the assassin has this skill where they do an automatical critical hit on the first attack with sneak and stuff. So the paladin had 48 hit points, and then I dealt 73 damage on the first strike. Then initiative was rolled. He woke up. He won initiative, I think. Cured himself for a bit and shouted some stuff. And he was out of her assassination range. She couldn't sneak him anymore, not easily at least. And the encounter started going they were just fighting from that point on. But even if he would still have been down and got a shout out to his party members, she would have to stab him the next turn to get him to 0 hit points, then have to stab him again to do 2 death save fails, and then had to stab him again for the last death save. So it's 4 attacks before she could even have downed him in a normal circumstance, because the first attack was a miss, and a rogue has a single attack. Of course, she could have took out a knife maybe or something. She could have done that, but it's a bit of a silly idea that you're an assassin and you have to stab 4 times at least to kill your enemy. In 2nd edition, it was really easy to kill someone, because hit points were low. Attacks, especially backstab attacks, could do a lot of damage. And you just reduce them to below 0 hit points enough, and then they would just die. 3rd edition was even more... okay, so the hit points could get insane in 3rd edition. but the damage you could do in certain situations is even more extreme. So you could, when there was already an advantage, you could reduce the enemy below 0 hit points for such an amount that the instant kill would always be near. In 5th edition, this has become a problem. So that's why I'm saying that 5th edition isn't that deadly anymore. Although there are, of course, situations where it is very deadly. And the main thing in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition where it comes deadly is when you have larger numbers against you than your party is. But because we are discussing party versus party here, you're supposedly have a kind of equal party in front of you. Of course, you could give them extra members or less members and make them their levels drop a bit or make them a bit higher and stuff. You can do all those things, but for simplicity, it's 1 versus 1 in favor of the party because of things we've already discussed. Balancing the encounter. We've now discussed balancing the encounter and the Dungeon Master versus player in one go, right? So balancing the encounter means that you just put a party against a party that is as powerful as that party because the Dungeon Master will fail because he has too much to do. Simple as that. And that's okay in both cases. It's okay that you have too much to do and don't optimize your fight. And it's okay that the party wins versus this party because you want your party to win. And at best it makes for an interesting and deadly encounter that will be remembered through the ages. And that's the main difference as well, because yesterday we fought a group of, I think there were 4 dogs, there were 2 archers, there were 3 brutes, there were 3 other kind of guys, there was a mage and there was a clerk, and it was kind of a difficult encounter. We were with 4 party members, so it was hard as well, but we weren't very lucky. We could have done much better, but this didn't have the party versus party feel, and Roger knows this because it wasn't a party versus party fight. It was a party versus a couple of bandits that were just there, and so the impact of the stakes was quite low. The only stakes that there were was that we had to survive the encounter to get to our goal, namely freeing the queen, and these guys were random. If this party had been like Thomas's main antagonist who was shouting stuff, then we would have felt a lot more dread and it would come near to this sense of a party, but then he would still have had minions, and then if it was a total party where the anti-Bowen, the anti-Aldrich, the anti-Solwing and the anti-Thomas were appearing, then it would have been the most intense battle of all time. So there you see what the difference party versus party makes when you think of it story-wise. Then the last thing is gear. So gear has always been a very tricky part in Dungeons & Dragons, and where I think that 5th edition made a kind of mishap where it's not lethal enough. They made very good choices when it comes to gear. And this is because of a couple of things, but let's start with 2nd edition. When I ran the 2nd edition encounters in the Night Below, the party leveled up gear-wise like 2 levels afterwards. Am I saying this right, Hebe? Because you were there. Because they had such good items. And not only did they have, like another sword +2 or a shield +1 or a blade plus 3, I don't know. They had all these kind of special items that supported their fighting styles. And luckily, in 2nd edition, there weren't that many things that you could stack, so that they didn't need the strangest item to buff everything to a level where they would be able to hit the party, which is the case in 3rd edition. In 3rd edition, when you build a character, you have to think of all the bonuses that you get on your gear, on your weapons, from spells, from whatever, that stack together. And the kind of thing that I always had in my mind is that your attack bonus should be about twice as high as your level, and your armor class should be 10 above that. Or if you are a tank, your attack bonus would probably drop a bit, but you would get another +5 to +10 to your armor class, so that it would make it impossible for enemies to hit your armor class, and you really would be the tank. And the way you would do this is by stacking different kind of bonuses. So you had an enchantment bonus on your weapon, you had a deflection bonus on your ring of protection, you had a profane bonus on your grimoire of whatever, you had a sacred bonus on the other thing, you had a luck bonus on that, you had all these kinds of moral bonus, all these kinds of bonuses that would stack. You could only have one of each of them, but and the highest would stack, but you could stack like 10 bonuses. And this is what makes combat in third really hard, and I think Hebe will agree with me, because in order to be the party that has all these bonuses prepared, you have to have a party which also has all those bonuses, and that means a lot of gear to confront them with. Or of course you can always tweak them, like make them have bonuses that really don't appear on their gear, but that's not actually how 3rd edition was designed. It was designed out of a kind of balance kind of thing, and I take a lot of that from that edition into my 5th edition monster creation, and where you see this especially is I made a monster during this show, and there I explain why I put all the bonuses in certain directions, and it's all correct, so to say. Correct, Jasper, says Hebe. Yeah, that's really the third edition problem. So I learned all that correctness of how to build a monster. I learned that from 3rd edition, and I put that into 5th edition, and that makes me understand how you should develop a monster very well, I think. Talking about myself again. I'm so humble. Anyway, but in 5th edition, you get 3 attuned items, and the things that stack aren't there. Actually, everything stacks. But you can wear 2 ring of protections, but they both need attunement. So after that you have only one attuned slot left, which you use for your weapon or for another item that you need, like a cloak of some kind, or boots or stuff, and then it's done. All other items almost never stack your attack bonuses or your defense bonuses, and that's what makes 5th so easy to play with. So the other thing is that in 5th your stats are limited to 20, and 20 gives you a +5 bonus, just the same as in 3rd edition. But in 3rd edition you get a spell that gives you a +5 to your strength, you get a gear that gives you +6 to your strength, you get put all your strength in your main, all your bonuses into your main stat, and you start off high, and you take a template that increases your strength, and before you know it you have a character with like 40 strength, which gives it 40 minus 10 is 30, divided by 2 is a +15 bonus to your stat, which gives a +15 bonus to your attack roll. And the fighter across 20 levels would stack his bonus to attack from +1 to +20, and on the second attack +15, third attack +10, and fourth attack +5. So don't think about the fourth attack, which it's in hindsight it's kind of a silly rule. And then you have the weapon bonus, then you have the buff bonuses, then you have your specialization and weapon focus bonuses. And before you know it, you really get to this +40 attack at level 20, which might still not hit your enemy, but would totally obliterate any farmer that you encounter. So 5th limits this to a +5 bonus at an ability score of 20, and some classes like the Barbarian, of course, can get to up to 24. And then you have your proficiency bonus, which scales from +2 to +6, which is actually a gap of 5 compared to your first level. So and at first level, because you invest in your main stat and you have proficiency in the thing you do, you have a +5 bonus. And then at 17th level, which is you have a +11 bonus. So there's a +6 difference in the bonus, and then you might have some gear towards that. And then, 24, 19, 14 is 15 base, +5 holy weapon, +7 strength, +1 focus, -2 tower shield, -1 large, +1 prayer. Example of 3rd edition, 15th level clerk. Yeah. A clerk with a +24 to its attack. Yeah, so there you see the scaling, and the gap in 5th is like 6. It isn't really 6 because when you and this is really good in 5th edition as well. When you start off, you get proficiency in 2 saves most of the times, and you don't get proficiency in the other 4. So there's your proficiency bonus at 1st level is +2. So compared to your non-proficiency saves, you get a +2 to these saves, which makes for a 10% bonus to your d20 rolls, so to say. And then, of course, when you have your strength save, you add your strength, and to your wisdom save, you add your wisdom modifier. So the same thing kind of counts for your character, that your best saves, if they align towards your main ability score, are about +5, while your worst saves might even be -1, because strength gets dropped a lot or charisma gets dropped a lot. And then there's a gap of 6, so to say. And at later levels, the funny thing is that the worst saves don't really improve, while the best saves do improve. So then you still might have a -1 to your strength save, but your best saving throw is a +11 bonus. So the gap has become 12. And this is where it gets interesting to select your spells to attack your opponents on their weaknesses, instead of trying to get past whatever thing they have. So even though it might seem that the gap isn't that big, it does get bigger over the levels, because your worst saves do not improve. Well, it might improve a bit through magical items, but not that much as in 3rd edition. So even if you say that your bonus at the bonus might differ from -1 to +11, which is a 12-point gap, it's never that big as it is in 3rd edition, where the gap might be 30. And this makes a lot of difference when you're rolling a d20 and a farmer tries to attack you, because armor class does the same thing. It's very common to have a character with an armor class of 17 in 5th edition compared to an armor class of 45 in 3rd edition. And because of this, when you have an armor class of 17 and you meet this farmer with a pitchfork, he can still hit you. Okay, you might have a lot of health by then, but he might still be able to hit you, and that is a good thing, because now we can start thinking about our gear. We don't have to give the enemy that much gear to make them do stuff to the party. Actually, you might not have to give them any magical items, any magical weapons or armor, and they might still thrive, because if you have a full plate and a shield, your armor class will be 20 anyway. If you are a fighter and you take the what is called the defense option, you might have an armor class of 21. And if you can imagine where I'm going with that. 21 will be a good armor class, while your mage might be at 11, and he will be hit a lot of the time. But he will be in the back, and the mage from the party will have about the same armor class. The 9th level party that I'm running, the mage has an armor class of 13, I think. And of course he can cast shield, he can cast mage armor, he can borrow a ring of protection from the rogue, so to say, and buff his armor class by 1 more. But, it's not really relevant, but because he will not get to that 25 armor class. Actually, he has to think about how he handles combat. Because he will never be the tank, he will never be out of range of a simple farmer his hay fork. So that's a word, but I thought of that. And that's what makes it interesting when gearing a party versus another party. Because if you don't have to invest in the weapons or the armor, then you can think of the other things you want to give them. Like, it's okay to not give them any magic up to a certain level, because the other thing is, of course, that you want to invest to have your party get magic from the party they destroyed. So you probably have to give them magic anyway, but you don't have to give them much. You could, if your rogue in your party has a short sword which isn't magical, and you give the rogue in the other party a +1 short sword, that's a cool upgrade for them to get. And it isn't that extravagant to give that away to your rogue who didn't have one before. But you can also think of a Cloak of the Mountebank, or a Ring of Protection, or Boots of the Winterlands, or Carpet of Flying, or a Orb of Scrying, or any of these items that are can specifically be used in certain situations, but not in combat, but are actually quite cool to have. Well, you can use your Cloak of the Mountebank, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying. You give them a couple of potions. Players are always happy to have potions. You can give them one of Giant Strength, and that can be used during the encounter. And this is how you can limit the magical items you give to the other party to about 1 or 2. Which means that if you have 7 party members in one party and 7 in the other, you're still giving away 7 to 14 magical items, which is still a lot. But they are not all real upgrades. Some are irrelevant upgrades, and some things are just cool. And probably only 4 or so will actually aid them in the next battle. EB says, and you find 36 silver pieces and a potion of charm. Yeah, well, yeah. if that's your 20th level encounter, EB, then I think nobody will be having fun afterwards. But you know, let's consider a 20th level party. What do you want to give your party when they defeat the 20th level party? It's about the same thing. If the guy has a +3 sword and your party has a +2 sword, then that's a small upgrade, which adds a 5% bonus to the attack chance. And because of 5th edition, that is significant, but you were able to hit a lot of the time anyway, because of the discrepancy between the progression of armor compared to the progression of attack, and especially because of what I said, that the armor class of the mage is probably still low, although he might have other defenses. And the save and throw throws, you can really pinpoint what kind of spell you want to put on what kind of character. So that upgrade of a +3 weapon is cool, and giving them a Cloak of the Bed, or will be cool for that one fighter that can't fly because he doesn't have magic. Whoa, what's happening? I have been active. Can you can't see me, right? Where is it? Am I back? Can you see me again? I think so, right? There we go. Yes, okay. If it's the same amount of items that you're going to give, like 7 to 14 items, and 3 of them are a potion, 3 of them are weapons that give a minor upgrade, then you have like 8 left, and 4 of them are things that they can use outside of combat, and then 4 of them are relevant in other ways in combat, giving them fire resistance or getting them move faster or whatever, then you have the upgrade. Does less magic mean higher levels of opponents? No, it doesn't mean that. That's what I'm saying. It means that you can actually have an equal opponent without having it become less powerful by not giving it enough magical items. That's the cool thing about 5th edition. That the other thing is, for example, that there often is kind of a 65% chance to hit your opponent, which means that the +1 bonus to attack difference makes it 70%, but it doesn't make it like a difference from 20 to 25%, where it would feel like you really need it, you know? You can often hit your opponent in 5th edition, and the damage output is high enough for any class without having to rely on that +1 bonus to your damage. There are often ways in which you can increase your number of dice through means that are in abilities instead of in magical items, and that's why it's so easy. That's what makes the big difference between 5th and 3rd edition. In 3rd edition, in all editions you put an equal level party against the party, and then they will lose because of the things I've said already, like the DM versus player thing. But in earlier editions, you still had to give them a lot of magic to be equal to the players. Where in 5th edition, you don't have to give them too much magic, and they are still equal to the players, because the points where they will use certain types of magical items are circumstantial. For example, if you have that ring of psychic resistance, then that will work against that one psychic attack that the enemy does, but it will not work against all the other things. And that's where the main difference is. Okay, because I play 3rd and all the magic items escalates in an arms race. Power play, I guess. Yeah, that's the drawback about 3rd edition. So if I would recommend something about 3rd edition, and you want to limit this somewhat, I would suggest increasing ability scores. You read it in books as well, and you have to sometimes make this logical for in your own mind. Is that the big enemy that they are facing, this group where this hulking brute of a barbarian is in front of them? He doesn't get his strength from a +5 item. He gains his strength from it being a hulking brute. So if you give them a +10 to their strength score, 3rd edition, you should never do this in 5th, then he compensates for a +5 bonus that he would normally get from luck, profane, sacred, enhancement, enchantment, or whatever kind of bonus. And you just describe them as a big brute. If you want your rogue to do extra sneak attack damage, it can be a bit harder, but you can also give them a potion that he uses at the start of combat, or a prayer to his god, where he never rolls lower than a 6 on this d6 die. It would be a bit silly. I think I will not do that easily as making a brute stronger. But if you don't, and this is only if you don't want to give too much away from your to your players, too much items away to your players. Usually that means extra levels or template or something like that. Yeah, and that's the big trap in 3rd edition. Everything has a rule, EB, and you have to escape the rules somewhat in 3rd edition, because otherwise it gets insane. It really gets insane. And this sometimes disturbs me in 5th edition, where if you see a monster that has like 10 hit dice and 300 hit points, for example, that doesn't have wrong example, which has like 30 hit dice, which grants it like 300 hit points, but it has a +5 to attack. That sometimes confuses me, because it doesn't feel right in my 3.5 edition mind that's still on me. But if you have to develop your boss by scaling its constitution to enormous height, and that makes its fortitude saving throws in 3rd edition go up to enormous height, so that your casters will never be able to circumvent anything that requires a fortitude saving throw, because you know how hard it is to get your DC up in 3rd edition. especially when you're not a full spellcaster, then you've done two things. You've made a ridiculous character which has a constitution score that is not normal anymore, and the only thing where you did this is because it now has like plus 30 1d8 plus 30 hit points per level. So why not just give it a couple of more hit points? Do not increase his to hit bonus to enormous height because of or his fortitude save to enormous height because you gave it a large constitution, but keep that kind of in range to where it feels nice for the players to still be able to fight this monster or player character, so to say. So, and you know, if you have problems with really doing this, and then imagine the stone giant, the barbarian to be a stone giant in small form, or maybe not even in small form, just in the big form, and then it has its increase in strength, and you don't have to think of level adjustment because it isn't the player character in that sense. So you can manipulate the challenge rating somewhat. We're getting very technical now, but the thing that I'm really saying is that, of course, when you are encountering this 15th level creatures in the 3rd edition, then it will have a weapon of like plus 3, maybe plus 4 to the bones. It goes up to plus 3 in 5th edition, by the way, not to plus 5 like it did in 3rd edition. So you can give that to your party, and you can give that to the creature as well, and calculate it into its to hit bonus. But actually, you just want to have it have a to hit bonus that does not easily hit the tank and easily hits those who are not the tank, because that makes for the most interesting encounter. I always remember this quotey thing, which I can't quote correctly, but where they say, how fast is the Starship Enterprise? Well, if it has to get there in time, it's just fast enough, and if it doesn't have to get there in time, it's too slow. And that's actually what you have to do somewhat. Of course, you have to stay realistic, and you have to stay to your numbers once you set them, because otherwise players will understand that you're manipulating things, and then it doesn't make sense for them anymore. And this is a 3rd edition mindset as well in players, you know. We all know the examples where the players say from, oh, I now have plus 20 to my skill, to my jump skill, so now I can use an epic level skill which allows me to jump across clouds, and with this trick I can now not only jump across clouds, but I can make a tumble in between and then make a weapon attack during my move, which I can normally not do. That's how 3rd edition works, and so you have to kind of comply with that when you're designing your monsters, but you have to be a bit more general with how you distribute your points. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about gearing, and I think I have given a 3rd edition answer now as well. I hope that's okay with you. If you have more questions, Hebe, just ask them. And I went through my 5 points to making a successful party versus party encounter now. So to summarize, make it relevant, make the party appear in a place where it makes sense for them to appear and make them part of the story. Understand the why once the party becomes more complex, so that you know their motivations, and when they survive the encounter, you can really talk from their perspective. Make a party, if you want to have a deadly encounter, make the party equal to the party level, with the same number of characters, and of course you can play with this, but that doesn't matter. And the party will actually still win, but they will have a hard encounter anyway. And this is because of the fact that the Dungeon Master controls the whole party, while the players are familiar with their own characters to a much further degree, and gear them with a lot less gear than, or with just 1 or 2 pieces per character, with 4 maybe. Well, how would you say this? If it's a 7 versus 7, I would not include more than 4 pieces of magical gear that would could really make a difference in future combat, and maybe give them some of the other items could give a slight buff to a weapon they're already having. Some might be potions, and some might be items that the players can actually use outside of combat. And that's what I have to say about party versus party. Whew. So for those who thought that I would be designing a party versus party, I'm not going to do that. Why not? I think it's quite obvious because there's a lot of things that you can do. There are so many options. To do this, I would have to build a party. Then I would actually put kind of the same party, but maybe races mixed a bit, and just slightly other gear. And maybe instead of a paladin it's a clerk, and instead of a rogue it's a bard, and so I have to turn it up a bit, and then you have your encounter. It's the rules you have to follow. That's the important stuff. Really think about why you are handling your party versus party encounter in a certain way. That's all I have to say, people. Any more questions? What did you think of it? Was it informative? Did you learn something? Or did you think, well, this is total shit, now I still don't understand how to do a party versus party encounter? While I wait for an answer, I'm going to sip some water. Nice refreshing water. Oh, Vix thought it was so helpful. Well, thank you, Vix. Yeah, luckily. Well, I'm getting a lot of positive response on my videos now. So I think I'm saying some really interesting stuff at times, but maybe I hope you agree with me on that. And I think that as a whole package, it shows something about what I think you could do as a dungeon master, because I'm not telling the one and only truth, of course. Let's return to the talk screen for just a small time. Man, I can't find my stuff. Oh, there it is. It's dinner time for me. Yeah, Vix, you go and eat. Back to the drawing table. Very informative. Nice, Hebe. Thank you so much for the stream. My pleasure. Thank you all for joining me. These are somewhat shorter than Talking Void, but I hope you like the format. And if you have any suggestions, please put them on our Discord or send them to me through Instagram or whatever, and or talk to me on some of the channels, and I'll gladly incorporate your feedback into my next show. Well, be seeing you. Be sure to watch Parallel Projections next week, and Talking Void, which will be a very interesting Talking Void, I think, with Eric as my guest, and talking about the planes of existence in the multiverse. And I'm so anxious to know what's going to happen the Monday after that again with our Precipice of Dreams adventure. Be seeing you. Goodbye.